Everybody's very interested about governance because we're going really, really fast. I think that no technology before we have adopted this fast. So now people is talking more about governance because it's getting spooky on the things that we are doing, we're implementing, we're scaling so fast, and then we need governance. So this is going to be very interesting. So trust data products, navigating the intersection of open banking, AI, and regulation. So we have, and we're going to welcome, Naz Rashid, a staff customer engineer from Collibra. Here you are. All right.
Thanks very much, Daniel.
Thank you.
Thanks.
There's stairs, by the way.
Oh, I'm over there? Okay, oh, yes, well.
But you show everybody you're very flexible.
I got a little lunge in there, yes.
You're a flexible person.
All right, well, thanks for the intro, Daniel, and hi, everyone. I'm Naz Rashid. I'm a customer engineer at Collibra. We are a data confidence company. So what we'll be talking about today is trusted data products and navigating the intersection of open banking, AI, and regulation. So in the next 12 months, many of you in this room will be asked to do two things. One is deliver AI use cases or efficiency through AI, and two is do it safely. Now, if your companies had started yesterday, and all your data was in one place inside of one platform and neatly organized, I'd bet that's maybe a solvable problem. But since we're at a financial services summit, I'll bet that your data stack might look something like this. Well, and because over the years, every year, you probably have a new and better way to be able to store data, move data, and transform data. And with every one of those years, that complexity has led to the spaghetti diagram that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. But don't get me wrong, these point-to-point connections built over the years were a necessity to do business. The business needed data, and it needed it now. But as the speed of development is increasing, and maybe exponentially so with our friends in AI, this kind of strategy won't scale. It gets really risky when you don't know where the pasta is coming from. And our regulators like OSFI have noticed that, and you'll see regulations coming out like E23 that are designed to help mitigate that risk. And use cases like open banking will make it really clear if you have a poor data quality strategy or a data governance strategy in general. And we don't want that. So let's mop up some pasta. So what you're looking at here is a target architecture. So the use cases haven't changed and the sources haven't changed. We're still trying to be OSFI compliant. We're still trying to deliver open banking and AI use cases. And what has changed is essentially the ability to have a trusted data product shelf in the middle, which is a data marketplace, if you will. And what that is, in essence, and many of you may have heard this before, is a set of discoverable and accessible, but most importantly, pre-governed data products that your data users in your organization can interact with. And the reason pre-governed matters a lot is you'll see here that they can be pre-governed for certain purposes. One is to be OSFI compliant. The second is to be ready for open banking and make sure your data quality and your lineage is airtight. And then obviously the third is to be AI ready. We know what poor quality data can mean for your agents. And these logos that you're seeing overlaid are that sense of confidence that your users can have, that if they start consuming this data product, they're not going to have a regulatory or an audit issue on their hands in a couple of months. And that's made possible by the green layer you're seeing at the bottom, which is unified governance for data and AI. But what that really means is the metadata that's coming from your technical sources, your business metadata, and your policy metadata is being combined to shift this kind of governance into the supply chain for your data products to be available. So it's not an afterthought, it's something that's been built into the design of the data products that your users are going to interact with. So you're not waiting for a quarterly attestation or an annual audit or even worse, for an issue to arise. So how does that actually work? Let's dive into some details on data products. So it's not just data. This isn't just a data or a table or an API that's standalone. It actually includes the context, the controls, and even the access. So the first thing is it's managed as a product with clear ownership and accountability aligned to business value. But more importantly, it's designed and tagged for appropriate use. For example, E23, open banking, or AI. And that's done because it includes the context and the controls. This means data contracts, which stipulate the data quality and the SLAs that the product must meet for their consumers. that also covers things like lineage. One of the things that, and this is kind of a side point, but this is also a way to think about it, is this can contain structured and unstructured data. We actually see the demand for unstructured data products being one of the main fuels for AI, especially with a lot of that training that needs to happen. And finally, integrated with access control. Not only a faster time to market, which means your users aren't hunting around in Jira and ServiceNow for the access request, but also the ability to answer who is accessing what and why. That seems like an easier thing to solve, but once you've got enough systems and spread them out far enough, it gets really difficult to answer that question. And tying that back to the context and the data and the controls can be really powerful. Okay, so why don't we just build them? I'm sure I'm not the first person that's been talking to you at a data conference about data products in a marketplace, and I'm definitely not the first person that's going to try to articulate what they should and what they can't be. The main challenge that we're seeing is that the majority of work that data stewards or data product owners that have to put in to create and maintain data products is manual. And manual data stewardship cannot keep pace with the speed of business. They're either going to do it anyway, and then you're going to have an issue to solve later, or these things will never make their way into production. The proof is in the spaghetti that you probably have waiting for you back at the office. So let's have a look at how we start tackling that. The real key here is automation and giving your data users, and especially the data owners, whether you call them data stewards, data custodians, there's a number of kind of terminologies they can use there, but whoever's producing that data and is responsible, and by the way, I know that the slides may be a bit small, so I'll walk you through these in detail. What we're really trying to articulate here is that every step of this journey can benefit from automation, either from our AI friends, like through LLMs, or through direct integration and automation and workflows. So the days of trying to catch up with all of this on spreadsheets being uploaded and kind of workflows with the users manually typing things in, that can work in a smaller situation, but as you're trying to scale out and keep pace with the business, that's going to be really difficult to do. So wherever you see that AI logo and that Thunderbolt logo is where you can actually utilize an LLM in order to speed up the process or directly integrate from your sources. So starting with phase one, that's solving the discoverability problem, which is you've got so much data spread out across your organization, manually cataloging all of that, it's near impossible. The second is trust. Once you've got that, technical metadata cataloged and some governance around it in terms of your business layer, start implementing data quality, lineage, and clear expectations, such as those data contracts we spoke about. And finally is scale. Now that you've got the foundations, how do you scale this out to the rest of the organization? So this is making that data accessible to the larger teams. So as we dive into phase one, which is the discover phase, eliminating that dark data and getting to that ever-elusive data marketplace, it starts with active metadata, like I mentioned. So automating your technical metadata, automating your lineage, and profiling to get that visibility across your landscape. It is a losing game to try to figure that out of how to upload that manually. And I can fully appreciate there may be a mainframe somewhere in there that no one's going to let you touch, and that's always going to be the case. There are edge cases. But for the majority where you can help it, that should be the first strategy. The second is your semantic layer. So this is the business context. This is actually converting all that technical metadata into something the business can interact with, and this is the governed semantics across your model providers. So as there are more data platforms and model providers entering the arena, you have your data engineers in your business that may be defining your business glossary in slightly different ways, because these are happening in different technical places. So the idea is you're getting to that level of governance across the model providers and across your platforms. And AI can help you actually get to that conclusion. The one that I think is probably the most important is the data product lifecycle itself. So this is the act of creating a data product through a guided experience that's going to make sure that they are fit for purpose, like E23, open banking, or AI. It takes the mystery out of what is the minimum standard, and actually you can utilize LLMs as judges in order to help you get to that minimum standard. It's not going through a manual review and waiting for the next person to look at it. The minimum standards are set up front. And that gets you closer to that data marketplace, but we'll come back to that. So now that you have the marketplace, how do you build trust? Just having stuff on the shelf doesn't mean people are going to go in and buy it and go home and maybe get sick when they try to ingest it. You've got to be able to get that trust. And that starts with unifying data quality and observability, the ability to apply data quality to those products so those minimum standards are met. Second is good old lineage, end-to-end traceability. The reason lineage becomes really important is if you've got a data quality issue upstream, you really don't want to wait for that to propagate downstream. Again, very basic, but when you've implemented it into data products, it gives your consumers that trust that they're not waiting for the data to go bad or not arrive before they're notified. And that gets into the data contracts. Overlaying all of that is your policy and compliance mattering. So one of the most common ways that organizations will try to handle the compliance monitoring is through an annual check or a quarterly attestation. You're waiting till the end of that quarter before you can take action. To be able to move this left or move this upstream, you want to notice when things are getting out of control. And those controls are established, again, through all the foundations that we set up before. Those data contracts, those data qualities scores, those service level objectives, those are all defined up front so that when things are out of thresholds, you're getting the notification early. And for those of you who are involved in the data engineering side, those are actually signals that are going out to your pipelines and ensuring that the right action is taken at the technical level, but also your business users are notified. So this is really kind of detailed. Don't worry, I'll walk you through it. A lot of what I've discussed here is high level, but I wanted you all to leave here with something today that's concrete and an example of how you can apply this in practice. So for those of you who don't know, OSFI's written up a regulation called E23 around model risk management. And that's really timely, but also is going to create a challenge as AI is proliferating and models are proliferating across your organizations. Back in the day, that was something that you maintained on-prem, and you had a model risk management team that could control the inputs and outputs. As you have more and more models that are entering the arena, this becomes a scale issue. So what you're looking at here is what we call a knowledge graph. But in simple terms, what we've done here is verbatim overlaid some of the policies and the key criteria from E23 to the metadata graph in the context of data products that we've been talking about. So what this means is this is the way that you and I would actually talk about data. Who has access to what? How risky is it? How many models do we have? Those are questions. And if you go into a technical inventory, that's not an answer you're going to get back unless you have context. So first example is model identification. Pretty easy, right? How many models do we have? Where are they? What's the version? What you're seeing on the left-hand side is, again, extracted directly out of E23. Those are the attributes that have to be kept up to date for every single model that is inventoried in your organization. So you can see where you're going to need the automation there. And that's just one piece of the equation. The second, in the top, which is 2.2, is model risk rating. So how do you go about performing those assessments? And again, a lot of financial organizations are already very mature in this category. But connecting your inventory to your risk rating and your assessments, these are now connected directly in a knowledge graph. So this is how you establish that risk rating. And the risk ratings, if any of you have ever filled out a model risk management questionnaire or had to see one, let alone fill one out, is what is the data? What is being utilized to train that model? What are the inputs? What are the outputs? So this is traceability. This is timeliness. These are controls. And again, this is directly from the policy that you look in, which again should tie back to the way you're implementing data contracts and service level agreements within your organization. And last but not least is the use of models. The use is really important, and a lot of the time I will find use cases documented in completely different platforms or completely different parts of the organization. They may be presented as business cases and be sitting in a project management software. They may be in a SharePoint. They may be as part of your enterprise architecture. They're all defined slightly differently, but not actually connected to the data and the models that are being utilized. And the reason the use case is really important is you want to be able to take risk where it makes sense, calculated risks. The idea isn't that you just don't use anything new and don't use any models because it's all scary. You want to be able to take the risk where it's possible, but control it where you need to. And what you do when you tie this into models should be appropriate for their business purposes, some of these models, it's okay if they hallucinate a little bit. Others, they can't hallucinate at all. And you want to know when that's happening, why that's happening, and what is the threshold for that. And as you're looking at this in the knowledge graph, I hope what you're taking away from it is that it's connected in a way we can ask these questions. Because the future of this doesn't look like us going through 15 pages of lineage. It's us asking an agent to say, hey, how risky does this look like for us for this kind of use case? And then, it's going to go through all that metadata for you in the background. You still do your review. You still perform the review, but you're not having to go and populate all of that manually, and especially not across disparate systems. Okay, that's my spiel on E23. But what that leads to is your ability to scale. So this is a reusable framework to utilize for open banking and AI readiness. All that foundational work you've just put in, that's what you can now utilize to scale out to the organization to say, hey, these products are coming pre-governed, they're coming pre-certified, and that's something that you can validate through your controls. This should speed up your ability for your users to get through access governance, including things like automated data classification. But the one that I really want to draw your attention to is access control. I see it too often that you'll have a marketplace and you'll have data products, but the ability to access that data is in a completely different system or a different process, and you lose that context in between. And finally, usage analytics. There's nothing worse than not knowing if the products are getting utilized at all. Some of them may seem really popular or may be underutilized. This allows you to direct your strategic investments to where you think the products are maybe bringing the most value, but you actually have direct usage statistics around those. And kind of to bring us closer to the end here, the risks of not deploying data products is what I want to be able to leave you with. So first is, again, failed AI and innovation. If you have low-quality data, a lot of those models will never make, or these use cases won't make it to production, especially if they're trying to pass a certain threshold. Massive operational waste. I can't understate this one. Back to seeing those 3 use cases of open banking, AI governance, and OSFI E23. If you're approaching each of those use cases, initiatives separately, and you don't have a way to pool your strategic investments, that is a huge increase in your cost of ownership. I've seen it where pipelines are being built right next to each other on teams that are accessing the same sources, and they're not able to draw the benefit from that. So the reusability is lost there. Erosion of trust. I think we in this room in financial services understand that reputational risk is a big, avoiding reputational risk is a big part of our jobs. With use cases like open banking, where users are going to be, obviously able to consume their own data, the data quality is going to be super important, and that could increase reputational risk where you don't have those controls in place. And finally, the inability to scale governance. Doing this point-to-point, back to the spaghetti diagram, if you're trying to pull every string of pasta from the carbonara through the machine, you're never going to get there. It's very hard to be able to scale that kind of program out. So what you're looking at here is the ability to kind of centralize those governance efforts in a couple of areas where, again, they're reusable. And that actually brings me to the end of my presentation. And I left some time open for questions. I'm not sure how much time I left open for that, but yeah, thank you. Yes, I think I see a hand back there.
Thank you. Hi. I get the idea of data lineage for structured data, but I'm thinking about something unstructured. And a use case is we have a tool where branch staff can go in and ask our sort of compliance intranet, hey, this client wants to open an account, what documents do I need? How do you recommend testing the output of that to say, are those 3 documents the right documents? Like, how do you navigate that?
No, this is a great question. And back to one of the slides on the data products was the idea of unstructured as well, where we see the most demand being generated right now, especially for kind of more conversational questions like that. The first problem that you see with unstructured is how do you start giving some structure around it, which is the tagging. Is if I'm seeing certain documents, what kind of domain or what kind of question are people trying to answer with that document? So the tagging becomes really important, not only at a document level, which could be a policy, a standard operating procedure, you could have, a job aid, but actually breaking that down to say, this question is actually directing to a job aid, and a job aid for this type of branch function, and in this type of branch function, these specific types of question. The way we've got somebody on our team that's working on unstructured data, and they've got a term called tagging trees. And the tagging tree was when it made sense to me to say, well, when I look at a question like that, the first thing I'm going to ask is, well, am I looking for a job aid, a standard operating procedure, or an FAQ? And then you filter that down and say, well, what domain is it? This is for a branch. This is a customer-facing standard SOP versus something that I'm going to use in model risk management, which is like way over there. It's the ability to create those tagging trees to get you closer and closer to that document specifically that's going to answer the question. And then the ability to flexibly define those in a language that fits your organization. A lot of what you'll see out there today in unstructured is rigid in terms of more designed around protecting PII data to say, we don't want all the sensitive data going out. Now imagine those tags, which are like first name, last name, driver's license, being flipped and actually being used to get you to the information you need. Does that help answer your question?
It sounds like, it sounds like it's a bit more of a complicated discussion, like that you'd have to work through, but it does help. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Look forward to seeing you back at our booth over there.
I can ask something if you let me.
Sure.
So probably a lot of people here use Calibra. I think Calibra, a lot of companies use it, and big companies, and like I think the needs are not just growing in terms of like everybody's collecting more data, but there is also other dimensions like AI is growing tremendously fast, and then there are new needs. It's not really about new data points, but it's about AI governance, guardrails, et cetera, and Calibra try to, assess all these different things. So I'm guessing, and I know that you guys get a massive backlog of requests from your clients that then you need to keep evolving, you need to keep producing things. So I was wondering, and then people probably want to know, how you are doing to maintain or accelerate the speed to answer all those needs that are arising with all this evolution.
No, it's a fair question, Daniel / Bad Bunny. I won't forget that. That's gonna stick. So yes, our product managers are busy, right? And especially with the advent of AI and the requirement to wrap your hands around it. I think we've seen a lot of, again, investment in the space, and especially that's allowed us to also invest in our space to be able to say, okay, this isn't the classic tried and true, and again, with many of your customers, first, thank you. But the second part is there are foundational elements that we in data governance have been doing from 10 years ago, which is your technical metadata, your lineage, your quality. These are things that people have been spending time on. But in terms of integrations to the new data platforms and the model providers, as we are seeing our partner network develop that's where our product manager is actually spending a lot of time to make sure that we stay in lockstep with them, especially on something we call interoperability. So you'll see things like the open semantic interchange, open data contracts. This is the ability for us to have those conversations with those platforms where the work is actually happening. Like you aren't creating data in Calibra or your data catalog. That's happening everywhere else. Mm-hmm. And that's not happening in only one place. So one of the things that's actually helped us reach that scale is the integration with things like, again, the open semantic interchange, which is between platforms to exchange business glossary metadata between like Snowflake and Calibra, again, or through open data contract standards.
All right. Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else? Questions? This is your moment. There is a question? Did you raise your hand or it was? No? Oh, okay. Okay, I think
all right,
we're good.
sounds good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So,